All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today we're taking a deep dive into tinnitus, that phantom ringing, buzzing, or even whooshing you might be hearing in your ears.
Aliens deal with it.
And we're going to uncover some surprising stuff along the way. Like, did you know that tinnitus doesn't actually cause hearing loss?
Yeah, it's a really common misconception.
One of the articles even said hearing loss doesn't cause tinnitus either. That blew my mind a little.
While they often happen together, one isn't directly causing the other. Tinnitus is more about how your brain's reacting to something going on in your auditory system.
So it's not my ears, it's my brain being weird.
Think of it like this. Your brain's waiting for a full orchestra of sound, right?
Mhm.
But if some instruments are missing or kind of out of tune, it tries to fill in the gaps. And that creates a sound that wasn't really there in the first place.
Okay, that makes sense. But then what about hyperacusis? Where people with tinnitus actually have super-sensitive hearing. That seems like the opposite of a hearing problem.
Hyperacusis is wild, isn't it? It really shows us that tinnitus isn't a simple on-off switch. It's like this whole complex network in your brain that's trying to make up for changes in, what you're hearing.
So basically, every tinnitus experience is different.
Exactly.
So let's talk about those changes. What actually triggers this phantom orchestra in your brain?
Well, damage to your inner ear is a big one, like loud noises over time, aging, even blockages.
One article I read mentioned too much earwax can be a trigger.
Definitely. And we can't forget medications. Over 200 medications can trigger tinnitus.
Over 200. Wow. Why would something like, I don't know, aspirin do that?
It's thought that some medications, especially in high doses or for people already prone to tinnitus, mess with how your inner ear works, or even with neurotransmitters in your brain. Both can lead to tinnitus.
So even everyday meds could be a factor.
Definitely something to talk to your doctor about for sure.
It's incredible how many different causes there are.
Yeah.
The articles mentioned everything from like circulation problems to TMJ to vitamin deficiencies.
Yeah.
Wild.
There's this rare form of tinnitus, actually, called pulsatile tinnitus, where the sound syncs up with your heartbeat.
Okay, that sounds kind of scary.
Usually it means there's a blood vessel issue near your ear. Sometimes it's no big deal, but it could be something more serious. So, yeah, always good to get checked out by a professional if you notice that.
So finding ways to handle the noise isn't enough. You might have a bigger problem to deal with.
Exactly. And that leads us to treatments. Hearing aids, sound maskers, therapy, relaxation techniques. What were your first impressions? Anything stand out?
Tinnitus retraining therapy caught my eye. Sounds kind of like teaching your brain to just ignore the phantom orchestra, right?
That's a good way to put it. TRT combines counseling and sound therapy to basically reclassify that tinnitus noise. It becomes a neutral sound instead of, something negative or scary.
So you're changing how your brain sees it, not just covering it up.
Exactly. And while it takes time, TRT has been really promising for a lot of people.
I'm realizing tinnitus is so much more than just ringing in your ears.
It really is a window into how our brains process sound.
And it can come from all sorts of places.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot, but there's still so much more to learn. When we come back, we'll dive into some of the latest research and potential treatments. Some of it is really cutting edge.
Before we jump into the future of tinnitus treatment, you mentioned retraining the brain itself. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. Some of the articles talked about tech that could actually change brain activity and maybe even silence tinnitus for good. That's got to be cutting edge, right?
It is. That's the exciting field of neuromodulation. We're using some seriously cool technology to directly influence brain activity, like using targeted electrical or magnetic stimulation to change specific brain regions that deal with sound.
So we're talking about reprogramming the brain to stop hearing that phantom noise.
It's not quite that straightforward, but you're on the right track. Researchers are finding that stimulating those areas can actually make tinnitus quieter, and sometimes it even gets rid of it completely.
That's amazing. So is a cure for tinnitus just around the corner then?
We're not quite there yet. We need more research to know for sure if it really works long-term and that it's safe.
I get it. But just the possibility of making tinnitus less intense for millions of people,
Yeah.
that's huge. What other cool research is coming up?
Well, besides neuromodulation, we're looking into gene therapy and stem cell therapy. It's early days, but they might be able to tackle the root causes of tinnitus at a cellular level.
Wow, that's incredible. It sounds like we're close to some big breakthroughs in how we treat tinnitus. One of the articles even talked about virtual reality. How does that fit in?
VR can create immersive sound environments that help people get used to their tinnitus. Imagine a world where you can control the sounds around you, slowly making your tinnitus quieter until it blends into the background.
So it's like tricking your brain into ignoring the ringing by surrounding it with better sounds.
Exactly. And because VR is so immersive, it can be really effective at changing how you experience tinnitus.
Sounds like the future of tinnitus treatment is going to be personalized, high-tech, and way more effective than what we have now.
Absolutely. Neuroscience, technology, and innovative therapies were all coming together to create some really exciting possibilities. That being said, what can people do right now to manage their symptoms while we wait for those cutting-edge treatments to become more widely available?
Right, it's easy to get excited about the future, but what about people struggling with tinnitus today? What can they do right now?
Protecting your hearing is essential. I know it seems obvious, but wearing earplugs in loud places or using noise-canceling headphones can really make a difference in preventing more damage.
Prevention is so important. What about managing the actual ringing or buzzing? Any tips for relief in the meantime?
Sound enrichment can be really helpful. Introducing pleasant sounds into your environment, like soft music or nature sounds, can mask the
This
tinnitus.
is about creating a soundscape that's more relaxing and drowns out that bothersome ringing.
Precisely. And don't underestimate the power of relaxation. Deep breathing, meditation, or yoga can really help reduce stress, which often makes tinnitus worse.
Stress definitely makes everything seem louder, including that ringing in your ears.
Exactly. And finally, don't hesitate to seek professional help if tinnitus is impacting your quality of life. An audiologist can assess your hearing, find any underlying causes, and create a personalized treatment plan for you.
Yeah, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about finding what works best for each person. We've learned so much, but before we wrap up, I'm curious. If tinnitus is the brain trying to compensate for missing sound information, could future treatments focus on teaching the brain to fill those gaps with, I don't know, nicer sounds instead of the ringing or buzzing?
That's a great question, and it gets at the heart of what we're trying to do. Imagine a future where we can rewire the brain to restore that sonic balance instead of just masking or getting used to the tinnitus.
That's a pretty amazing thought. We've gone from debunking myths to exploring some really advanced treatments, and now we're talking about rewiring the brains. It's been quite a journey.
It has, and it's been a pleasure sharing it with you and our listener.
And for our listener, we hope you're feeling as excited about the possibilities as we are. But before we get too carried away, let's talk about what you can do right now to manage your tinnitus and live your best life, starting today. So we've talked about the future of tinnitus treatment, but for someone listening who's dealing with it right now, what can they actually do today? What's the biggest takeaway?
First and foremost, you're not alone. Seriously, millions of people have tinnitus, and there are so many resources and support systems out there.
Like what?
Online forums, support groups. There are even apps specifically for tinnitus. They can give you info and, connect with others who get it.
The community aspect is so important, right?
Yeah.
It can feel really lonely dealing with tinnitus, especially when people around you don't really understand it.
It can be isolating for sure.
Yeah.
But beyond connecting with others, there are things you can do yourself to make tinnitus less, I don't know, intrusive in your day-to-day life. We talked about sound enrichment and relaxation, but even changing some lifestyle habits can make a difference.
Like what kind of habits?
Sleep, for one. Being tired can make tinnitus way worse.
Makes sense.
Also, cutting back on caffeine and alcohol can sometimes help. It really depends on the person.
It's easy to forget how much our overall health affects things like tinnitus.
It's all connected, and if you smoke, quitting is one of the best things you can do for everything, really, but your hearing health, too. Smoking messes with blood flow to the inner ear, and that can make tinnitus louder.
Wow, it's kind of crazy how much of this ties back to taking care of yourself in general.
It really does. It's a holistic approach to managing tinnitus. You're not just treating symptoms, you're taking care of your whole well-being.
And if you're feeling lost or not sure where to begin, an audiologist can be a huge help. They can help you figure out what's going on and create a plan that works for you.
Definitely. Don't be afraid to reach out for help.
So, to wrap up this deep dive into tinnitus, I think we can say it's way more complex than most people think. We've busted some myths, talked about the science, and even gotten a glimpse into the future of tinnitus treatment. It's pretty exciting.
It has been, and it was a pleasure sharing this journey with you and our listener.
And for our listener, we hope you've walked away with a better understanding of tinnitus and all its intricacies. Remember, it's not just a sound. It's a glimpse into how your amazing brain works. There might not be one magic solution, but with the right knowledge, some support, and a little effort, you can absolutely manage it and live a full life.
And if this deep dive has sparked your interest, definitely check out the sources we've mentioned. They're a great starting point for a whole world of fascinating research.
You never know, you might be inspired to join the search for a cure yourself. That's all the time we have for today. Until next time, take care, keep learning, and be kind to your ears.